In today's video, we're going to be learning about using the quadratic formula. Now, using this formula it's like almost like a lifesaver in solving the quadratic equations, because it works for in place of every other method that you would learn to solve a quadratic equation, right? It works, and it also works when your equation is not factorable. So you can't just say, I'm just going to factor it and get a nice answer. Like, it's just simply not factorable. And you'll see that when you use this formula, you're going to get answers that are kind of like either fractions or decimals. But it is really good to know the formula. And the more you use it, the more you're going to know it. Don't let it intimidate you. It's pretty easy to use. The only thing that I would say about this formula is that it's easy to make a mistake. It's easy to drop a sign, to drop a negative sign, to drop a positive sign. It's just easy to make a mistake, and there's a lot of steps to it, but it is really easy to do once you just balance to do it. So one thing we need to remember is ax squared plus b x plus c. This is very important that we remember ax squared plus bx plus c, because that is pretty much what this whole quadratic formula is based on, right? Your B, we have B's, and then your C right there. So whatever numbers are in place for your A, B, and C, you're going to just plug that into the quadratic formula and solve. That's pretty much what this is. So we're going to get into an example of using this formula. Okay, so here we have an example. Now, looking at this example, we could use the square root strategy. If you don't know what that is, I'm going to leave a link in the card above. But we could use this, we could do this using the square root strategy, right? But then again, let's try and use this formula. Like I said, it's just like a, if all else fails formula, or just if you're too lazy to think about what method to solve your equation in, you can just decide to use the quadratic formula. It's gonna work, but then again, it's just more steps and additional things, but it will work. So let's try it. The first thing I always advise anybody that's using this method to do is list out your A term, your B term, and your C term. So our A term here is a 5, right? Ax squared plus b. Now our b term here is a 0. There's no b term, right? Again, this right here is a c term. Why? Because when we look at ax squared plus bx plus c, the b goes with an x, the a goes with an x squared. But the c is alone with nothing. So that's how we know this is the a term. This is the c term because there's no x, there's no variable beside it. And then our c is negative 80. Now we can't just go and say, oh, there's no b term, so it's not equal to 0. Like, we can't just get rid of this b and say it's just a and c, because we're gonna need it in our formula. We can't just say, we can't just then come to our formula and say, oh, there's no b right here. No, we're going to need it, and we should still make it equal to 0. So when you don't see a b term, that is a 0. The b term is equal to 0. So now we're going to take all of this and plug in 5 for wherever we see a in our equation, plug in 0 for wherever we see b in our equation, and plug in negative 80 for wherever we see a c in our equation. So let's get started, right? We have negative 0, right, for our b, plus minus, this is really important, square root. We have 0 squared minus 4. I'm going to use a bracket because 4ac is pretty much saying 4 multiplied by a multiplied by c. We could use multiplication signs, but since there's going to be a lot of numbers anyway, I'm just going to use brackets. So a, we have 5, right? C, we have negative 80. And then that's going to be all over 2 multiplied by 5. Again, we're replacing wherever we see 5. So now we have kind of written our equation this way. Now we're going to simplify. Negative 0, like, this is nothing, right? This really doesn't mean a lot, so I'm just going to get rid of that. So we have 0, that doesn't mean a lot either. I'm going to get rid of that. Then we have negative 4, 5, negative 80. So now we're just going to do, it doesn't matter which one you do first. You can multiply your 5 by your 4 first or your 5 by your 80 first. It really doesn't matter. Just don't forget the signs. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to be left with, I actually have to do this mental math, 1600 over 2 times 5 is a 10, plus minus. So this is what we're left with. Now we could go ahead and find what's the square root of 1600. And that's 40. Right? And we still have our over 10. But remember, we have the plus minus sign. And that's why I said that sign was super important, because now we're going to need it. It's a 40, so we're going to have a positive 40 over 10. We're going to have a negative 40 over 10. We're going to get two answers. Again, the answer here would be a 4. The answer here would be a negative 4. So our final answer is a 4 and a negative 4. So we can pretty much just say our V is going to equal 4 and negative 4. Pretty simple. Right? Just plug in your numbers. And again, we're getting really nice numbers this time because, like I said, we could have used the square roots method to solve that and would have gotten the same answer. But then again, I just wanted to prove a point that you could also use the quadratic formula. Now we're going to do another example. Now, when we have this equation, we have to remember this side, the right side of your equation, must always equal 0. So if it's not, we're going to make it equal 0. And to do that, we're going to take away 4 from both sides. I'm going to be left with 2k squared plus 12k plus 10 equals 0. Again, we're going to number a thing to... So now we're going to have... Again, we're going to plug in the things. And I know the formula on my head. Now, we have a negative b square root, b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Now, there are times where you're doing your assessment, your teacher or whosoever is, you're in this room might decide to give you the formula on your exam or on your test. But sometimes they might not. And so you really do have to, memorize this. But guys, the more you use it, the more you're just going to get used to the formula. So the more you practice, the more you're just going to know it in your head. So I haven't been doing this for years and years and years. Just a couple of months, if not just a couple of weeks or days of practice, and I can learn the formula. It's really not that hard. Just be open-minded to learning the formula. I think it's better to be safe than sorry. If your teacher does decide to give you, or your instructor or whatever, does decide to give you the formula on your exam or on your test, then you just, you have it as a backup, right? Just in case you're making an error, right? But I do advise that you learn that formula. It's like life-saving, right? Especially for me. But we have a negative 12. Let's say my B was a negative. Let's say this was already a negative 12. My formula has a negative, but my B also has a negative. I'm just assuming because this question actually doesn't, but let's say it did. This is going to become a positive. We're just not going to, because it's going to be a negative 12, which is going to end up becoming, right? Negative times negative is a positive, right? So that's how I would look at that. Don't just decide to get rid of, don't decide to just get rid of the positive sign that's supposed to be there. Just, it has a negative in the formula, so it's going to have a negative automatically. But anyway, in this case, it's going to be a negative 12. We're going to have square root, again, 12 squared minus 4 to 10 all over 2. Wow. Over 2. Okay. So now again, we're going to just simplify that. I'm just going to move every other thing out of the screen. To simplify this, we still have our negative 12. We have our plus minus. Again, this is almost where the plus minus is going to be even more important, because we're going to have to plus it with negative 12, whatever we get in our square root, and also subtract that from negative 12. So we're going to see what we get. 12 times 12 is 144. Right, we're going to take away 20 times 4 is it's 80. So we're going to take away 80. Again, everything is all over 4, right? 2 times 2. So now we're going to have negative 12 plus minus square root. 144 subtract 80 would be 64, I believe. Right, we're going to divide it by 4. Now, square root of 64 is 8. Now, we're getting actual square roots, right? But there are times where we won't. Now, give you an example. So we have negative 12 plus 8 over 4 and negative 12 minus 8 over 4. Why is there 2? Again, the plus minus here. All right, we're going to take the plus of whatever this is. We're going to take the minus of whatever this is and keep the rest the same. And that's exactly what I just did. So then this is going to be negative 12 plus 8 is a negative 4 over 4. Right, we're going to have a negative 1. For this, we're going to have a negative 20 over 4. And we're going to have a negative 5. 2 completely different answers. That's why the plus and minus are so important. So we can just say that k, because that's our variable, right? K is equal to negative 1 and k is equal to negative 5. So let's say in here was not a nice square root. I'm just going to change this to a 65. And we couldn't square root that. What would be my answer? So you can try and, square root it. I mean, there could be, but really, you can get away with just doing negative 12 plus minus square root 65 over 4. And that will be your final answer. Or you could do it, where you want to go the long way and do negative 12 plus square root 65 over 4. This is answer 1. And negative 12 minus square root 65 over 4. And then this would be answer 2. You could go ahead and do it like that. Both are correct, but I would rather just do this way because it's just writing it once and forgetting about it. So this is pretty much using the quadratic formula in a nutshell. You're just plugging your A's, your B's, your C's into the equation and solving for it. It's that simple. It's not that difficult. And remember, your left side of your question always has to equal 0, right? This part always has to be a 0, not a 4. If it's another number, make it a 0. Make it a 0 before using the formula. It's really going to change your answer. So anyway, thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you learned something. I'm going to have instructions in the description box for you guys to follow step by step. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.